This is Urdizzle back with episode 2 of my mini-series Art of the Forehand, where I'm walking you through kind of the history and the process of how and why I throw these forehands. And to really explore that, I need to go back to the beginning. So heading back to Sunshine Glade, hole 1, and to discuss how kind of a different way to look at throw-ins from how people are traditionally using them, whether it's a putter or a mid-range. So I want to break it down into 4 main categories that most people look at when they are deciding what to throw and how to throw it. And the first is your up and down. Obviously, depending on the throw, whether it's uphill, downhill, whatever your decision is or how you're doing it, you have to decide how high or low to throw it. And no matter what you do with any shot, whether it's a throw-in, off the tee, or anything, you have to decide what is the height of your disc going to be. And different discs act different ways. Light discs will go higher and so on. So that's the first point. The second point is obviously left or right. And when you're aiming side to side, there's a lot of different factors that come into play, but obviously the wind will come into play, but that's actually going to be our third point. But when you're talking about left or right, you have to think about the flight of the disc. For example, if you throw an Explorer, that disc is going to finish to the left, so you have to aim a little further to the right. If you throw a Fuse or a River, those have a tendency to turn over, so a right-hand, backhand River will kind of turn initially and then go straight. So you have to keep those in mind when you're deciding what to throw. Or here, I just threw a Pure, and a Pure will go a little straight, but then have a very gentle fade to the left. So again, up and down first, and then your left to right. The third factor you have to take into account is the wind. Obviously, a left to right wind will blow it to the right, right to left wind to the left. But you also have to keep in mind that a headwind will have a tendency to flip a disc over to the right a little more if we're talking about a right-hand backhand. Tailwinds will not let the disc turn over a little bit and will actually force it a little over to the left, basically causing it to hyzer out a little sooner. And the fourth is the power and the pullback. And this is the one that's probably the hardest for newer players to get used to. Is if you're trying to do a full power throw, that's fine. But what if it's 150 feet or 180 and you don't want to do a full power? And that's why the power is probably 90% of the reason people miss throw-ins. So to recap, our 4 components when we're doing the throw-ins are your up and down aim, your left and right aim, and then once you get those dialed in, you then have to adjust for the wind, which if you have a windbreak disc does not have a significant effect. And then the fourth thing is the pullback power. Do you pull it all the way back, 2/3 power, half power, whatever it is? And so in a situation like this, I know that if I'm going to throw my backhand Fuse, I know it's going to be too much disc, so I have to aim a little lower and then a little to the right for adjust to the wind. But then I also know that a Fuse is going to turn over a little bit, and so I have to tweak it a little bit. And that one was not really close. And so this right here is probably one of the main reasons why I like to throw forehand. And that is because right now we have 4 variables. We have our, traditionally we have our up and down, which we talked about. We have our left to right. We have the wind that we have to deal with, and then we have the power. And so what I like to do with the forehand is the forehand completely negates the 4th component there, which is the pullback. I never, ever, ever do forehand throw-ins with less than full power. So everything I do, I adjust so that I don't have to figure out, am I gonna throw 80%? Am I gonna throw 70%? And so we look at the situation right here on Sunshine Hole 1. So I aim a little lower and a little to the right to compensate for the forehand throw, which is going to go to the left. I then shift a little bit further out to the right because I know it has a wind of 2, which will have a slight impact on that, and then I throw. Now, does it always work? No. But what I did right there, and you didn't even notice, is I pulled back full power. And that is the key to every one of these throw-ins, is completely take out the power aspect, and then all you have to do is focus on the left to right, the up and down, and then the wind, which will be consistent. So right here, I'm going to show you several examples of how I do these throw-ins. So this is hole 5 of Sunshine Glade, and I kind of threw it in the water on purpose to give myself a 140-foot throw-in. So this is 148. Now, I will dive into more of the specifics in a later video, but basically the bottom tip of the top arrow, I line up with the tip that's just above the basket for about 175 feet. Now for this one, since I'm 148 feet, I'm going to aim a little bit lower. I'm going to aim a little to the right to read kind of the left to right of the Fuse, which is going to turn over, and then this is what I'm going to do. Watch the power. Straight pullback, full power. So again, all I had to do was line up the left, right, the up, down, which takes practice. But once you do that, you just have to pull back full power every time. Now, if you miss, you are going to go a little bit longer than you would normally, but cutting out one of the 4 variables has significantly increased my chances of making those. I make them all the time. So again, here's another example. This is blueberry hole 3. And so I threw a musket to give myself kind of a shot in this little tunnel, which we've all been here. So 146 feet, almost the exact same shot, except with the headwind of 2. So a little to the right, a little low, and again, full power pullback. And once you start getting used to when you aim lower, the disc is going to turn over a little bit more. And I think that's pretty standard stuff for any disc. The lower you aim, a good example is if you throw a light glide ballista, and if you aim lower, it's going to have a tendency to turn over a little more. So here, again, I threw a musket to give myself a throw-in opportunity. So now we're 172. So we're in that range. If you look at my arrow, the tip of the arrow is almost even with the bottom of that marker that's above the basket. And so I aim a little bit to the right. And because I don't have to aim as low, I don't have to aim as far right because I know the disc is not going to turn over as much. Wind to 1's probably not going to have much effect. I aim a touch higher because it is a little uphill from where I'm at. Full power pullback and in. And another one. So now we shift over to Oak Hill. So the first one was Oak Hill hole 1. And this is Oak Hill hole 3. It's the same setup for every shot in this range. Now, in later videos, I'll show you how I incorporate the accurate sticky keystone in it, but it's pretty much the same setup. All right, here, so 168. So the tip of that, now this is slightly uphill, so I'm aiming a little bit above that marker that's above the basket. A wind of 2 really is not going to have a huge impact. Again, I don't have to aim as far right. And full pullback and end. So again, the lower I aim with the fuse, the further to the right I have to aim because I know it's going to turn over more. So shots from 140, I will be aiming further to the right than I would for a shot from 170. All right, hole 4 at Oak Hill. Again, these are great holes because I can just throw a musket or some fairway driver to give myself a good throw in. Okay, now this is a little different too because it's 159, but I am uphill a little bit. So I'm kind of up on a hill, so this is coming down ever so slightly. So I'm going to aim a little bit below the basket. And with a wind of 1, that's not going to have too much of an impact on it. But I didn't have to aim really, really below the basket, so I really don't have to aim too much further to the right. And so that one I probably should have aimed a little to the right because that was a little sketchy. All right, let's try another one here. See if we can put ourselves further out. And so this one I got to be careful because they did change the out of bounds. You used to have quite a bit more room to the right. And so now the out of bounds is much closer to that rock. And that was really close. All right, so 113 feet. So now this one, it's 113 feet and it's down. So look how much further. So I aimed a little bit further to the right and I had to aim a little bit lower. Now this is a little bit harder shot for me because nowadays I don't throw my fuse, I throw my keystone. So anything under about 140, I'm using my keystone, but the fuse should work fairly well. And again, full pullback, and that was, see, it was too high because that was probably a little bit too much discs. So I was a little surprised I was going to make that. But these are the skills that if you don't have a lot of the big drivers, so here I'm just going to kind of throw an easy shot out here to give me a throw-in. If you can work on these throw-ins, it can kind of save you strokes if you don't have the big drivers or if you make a mistake. So here, 142, I'm going to aim a little bit lower than that target. And the wind of 1, so what I like about the accurate windbreak fuse as opposed to the glide is it's not really affected by the wind too much. So here I don't even look at that wind of 1. It's not even a consideration. So winds of 2 I'll adjust a little bit, but winds of 1 I don't even look at. I don't care if it's left, right, headwind, tailwind, just doesn't have any impact on me. All right, so this one we're just gonna see if we can aim, get ourselves a throw in way to the left. Like anybody that's played this hole in certain winds has played it safe and ended up way, way, way out here. And then you got to force yourself to do a throw in. So here 141, so we know we're going to be aiming a little bit below, but not too much below because this is slightly uphill from where I'm at. And that's one of the things I think that'll save you a lot of time and will earn you shots is if you can understand the elevation changes that each hole has. But again, wind of 1, I'm not making any adjustments, full power pullback, and there you go. And that'll just about do it. So to kind of summarize the 4 components we have when we're working on throw-ins, the first is your up and down aim. Again, getting that up and down distance dialed into where you want it, which takes some experience. The second is your left to right, which those are going to be, no matter what shot you have, you're always going to have to work on the left, right, and up, down. And there's ways to change the angle, but I don't like doing that. The third is the wind, and that will have more significant impact on you if it's a wind of 3 or 4 or 5. And then this is the big one. Number 4 is the pullback power, but that is the one, number 4, that I completely cut out of the equation when I'm doing the forehand throw-ins. So if you want to know the value of doing those forehand throw-ins, that one right there is probably the biggest one. I don't ever consider the power. I just do full pullback every time, and it has served me well. So hopefully this gives you kind of a push in the right direction, and we'll expand a little bit more on this in the next video of the series, but that at least gives you an idea to what disc to try and some different aim points you can start messing around with. All right, hopefully you enjoyed episode 2 of The Art of the Forehand, and I will be back with episode 3 coming soon.